everybody, I've been wanting to film this video for a while. It just took me a little bit to get familiar with both of them. There, I think, were two big palette releases this summer, the Lorac Pro 3 palette and the Anastasia Beverly Hills Modern Renaissance palette. There are some definite similarities, but they are very different, and I have a clear favorite. If you watch my vlogs, you probably know which one that is. I'm gonna start with the one I was most excited about, and that's the Lorac Pro 3 palette. Now, I have the original one that came in the black, same packaging, but in black. I'm very much a shimmer girl, and I'm very much a neutral girl. So when I saw this on Nordstrom's website during the anniversary sale, I was really excited because these colors just scream my name. As it's the same as the previous two palettes. You have one row of complete mattes, which is this top row here, starting with Blank being the lightest shade, and then you move to Canvas, and then Cool Taupe, Pink Nude, Clay, Terracotta, Dark Brown, and then Jet Black. And then moving on to the bottom row, you have the shimmers, starting with Light Gold, Almond Pearl, Medallion, Light Pewter, Amethyst, Rose Bronze, Dark Mocha, and Truffle. Now, the problem lies in that all of these look pretty much exactly the same once you transfer them onto your eyelids for about a minute, and then they look like nothing, especially the shimmers, because any shimmer in them falls onto your cheekbones. For instance, Medallion is probably the worst out of all of them. It's my favorite color in the pan, and I thought it would make for a great one shade all over kind of look. And that's what I tried doing, and I had it all over my eye and a little bit of Cool Taupe in the crease to kind of balance it out. And I thought, oh, you know, that looks good today. Walked around the house for about an hour, came back, checked in the mirror. It looked like I had nothing, like I had not done any of my makeup, except there was all this dust on my cheeks. Now, I've heard of fallout, but I've never in my life experienced something like that. I thought it was a fluke. I tried it again the next day. No. Same exact thing. I will not be recommending this, no. So let's move on to Modern Renaissance. This one is interesting. I like the packaging in that it's soft, but I don't like the packaging in that I've already gotten it dirty because it's hard to clean off. It's gonna get dirty as all makeup packaging does, but it's hard to wash out because it's basically velvet, so that's kind of bizarre. But here you have, I believe it is 14 shades, and I am sorry, let's back up a minute. This bad boy has 16 eyeshadows and it's $44, and it comes with the small mini travel size of their eyeshadow primer. But it doesn't really matter how much it costs because you should not buy it. So there you go. Okay, this one is $42, comes with 14 eyeshadows, 12 of which I think it's 12, are their ultra matte formula. And I think 2 are shimmery or satin finish. They all are clearly warm toned. They all have very funky, interesting names that have to do with the Renaissance paintings, period. Things like Vermeer, Golden Ochre, Cypress Umber, and so forth. The shadows are very creamy, very soft, very blendable. They wear for a very long time. This was the palette I took with me when I went to New York Fashion Week. I wore this except for one day, the entire time. They held up incredibly well. I was stressed out, I was nervous, I sweated a lot due to nervousness and the fact that it was 90 degrees and about 90% humidity, and my shadows stayed on all day for about 16 hours. So I was really impressed with that. Now let's talk about the shades. So let's go through the top row first. We have Tempera, then there's Golden Ochre, Vermeer, which is my favorite for the inner corner. Then here we go, Buon Fresco, Antique Bronze, a favorite outer corner shade and probably going to be an all over lid shade come fall, Love Letter, and Cypress Umber. Then on the bottom row, we have Raw Sienna, Burnt Orange, Primavera, which is my go-to lid shade right now, Red Ochre, Venetian Red, Warm Taupe, which is my go-to crease shade, and either Real Gar or Real Gar. And I should point out that this also comes with a double-ended brush, which is okay, but I've never really loved any brush that comes with any palette I've ever bought. So, you know, the packaging is reminiscent of the IT Cosmetics palettes. It's the cardboard, like I said, and I think it's the same exact color and the same kind of fabric. It's a really interesting palette. I like, I'm partial to warm tones. The quality of the eyeshadows is great. And I like that it's a little bit off the beaten path, but not too off, like off into the woods crazy, like, you know, like metallic greens or bright yellow or, you know, iridescent purple, which are all beautiful colors, but not in my comfort zone. These are just enough within, right on the edge of my comfort zone, that I can find ways to incorporate this into my everyday wear without being too uncomfortable. So I'm going to show you how I did that using one of them bright red shades to achieve this look. So let's hop on over to a little demo / tutorial and see how I created the eye look I'm wearing right now. And it's pretty much what I wore throughout Fashion Week. So let's hop on over and take a look. There's a pattern I like to, or a formula that I always tend to stick with when I do my shadows, no matter what colors we're working with. I start with a transition shade, which is generally a matte, lighter toned brownish tan shade, and then I do a generally lighter toned shimmery shade on the lid, and then we kind of build up from there. So let's start with that transition mid-tone brown shade. In this case, I'm going with Warm Taupe, which is right here, with a generally fluffy brush. And I just, generally to find the crease, I've talked about this before in previous videos, but those of you who are new to the channel, I tilt my head back a little bit, stick my chin up, and when you look in the mirror, you can see the shadow of your socket, the bone here, and you can actually very then easily find where to lay that crease shade down. And so that's exactly what I'm going to do here. And I just go a little bit with the edge of the brush and just kind of very lightly buff that in. And it's always better to do a little bit lighter. You can always add more. It's a little bit harder to take away. So we're just going to do that very lightly and just go back and forth and swish that around. That windshield wiper motion that you hear about here on YouTube so often. Now I do have a trick for fixing that. If you have put too much on there, you can find a shadow that is your skin tone and dip your brush in that and then go right over it and along the edges, and that'll kind of work as an eraser. Now, sticking with that formula I've mentioned, I know it's a little out of focus here, we're gonna go with this lightest shade. It has some shimmer, it's more of a satin tone. It's called Primavera, and it has a golden undertone. I love these warm tone shades. Especially on, I think, fair skin. It adds some, well, warmth to the skin, a little healthy glow, if you will. So I'm just going to take a flat brush, in this case, my all-time favorite flat brush, which is the MAC 239, and I'm just going to pack that onto the lid. A flat brush works better to pack on pigment. It literally just, because of the shape, packs it on. It gives it a more dense application. A fluffy brush, because it's fluffy, it's a little airier and blends it better, and it is a less dense application. So can you see that shimmer? And I'm going to push it all the way up so that the tip, this looks a little gross, the tip is actually sticking in the orbital bone there, in that socket line. Now is a good time to go back and blend just a little bit. So any blending brush, any light fluffy brush will do. And just kind of go along the edges of where the colors meet, and then also along the top of that transition shade, just so there's no harsh lines. Then with a pencil brush, I'm going in with the lightest shade right above Primavera. It's called Vermeer right there. And I'm just going to use that, I'm just going to use that right in the inner corner just to brighten things up a little bit. Now here is my favorite part, and I think this is the best part of the palette. Again, you can use any fluffy brush. You can use a MAC 217. You could, if you're very steady-handed, you could go back and use a bigger fluffy brush. I am using a Sigma E36. MAC makes a version of this as well. It's like a teeny tiny little fluffy brush. And I am going in with, this is gonna sound crazy, I'm going in with red ochre. You can use any of these matte red shades. You can use, okay, I don't know, is it Realgar? I'm gonna say Realgar. This bright orange shade would be great. I'm gonna very lightly, actually I've used a bunch. This burnt orange shade too would be, if you're a little scared of this bright orangey red shade, I would say burnt orange is the way to go, but I'm gonna go in with the red ochre shade. I'm gonna be a little more daring today. And I'm gonna very, very lightly dip my brush in there, tap it off, and even dust it on the back of my hand. And then I'm gonna very lightly go right at the edge, kind of overlapping onto the skin that doesn't have any shadow on it yet, and where there's already that transition crease shade. And I'm just gonna very lightly go along the edge. Now, if you have been a long-time viewer of my channel, you'll remember I used to do this with matte cranberry, especially around the holiday time. It's a great way to warm up a look and add a little color to your eye without actually being really overt about it. It's really subtle, but it's a great way to kind of punch it up, add a little depth to the eye. I'm keeping it at the top for now. You'll see what I'm gonna do in a minute. Kind of stop it around the midway point here at the top of the thing, and then go back and blend a little because I want to add my outer corner shade. I'm going to do that with well actually this is a Sigma version of the MAC 217. It's the E25. I'm going in with Antique Bronze. I probably could have done that first, but we're just playing here. When I put on my makeup in the morning, I'm sure just like everybody else, I don't go in with this grand plan of how I'm gonna do my makeup. I just start slapping it on and see what happens. So with the Antique Bronze, which I'm not sure if I showed you this, right there. It's another one of those shimmery shades. It's one of my favorite colors in the palette. First, on the flat side of it, I just lay it down right on the outer corner, like so. I have enough left, I'm gonna do it on this side too. And then I kind of swirl it around and bring it up into this outer corner into the crease a little bit. Just like that. And kind of also blend it up into that reddish color. I am and do walk around like this during the daytime, but you definitely want to balance it out. There's a lot going on the top, not so much going on the bottom. So going back with a pencil brush, I'm just gonna go back in with Warm Taupe, which was that first shade we put in the crease. And I'm just gonna run that on the lower lash line very quickly. And again, if you want to amp it up a little bit more, you could take that fluffy tiny brush with whatever's left on it and kind of run that red underneath. If you want to soften it down a little bit, which I probably should, I'm going to take, what's this called? Tempera, which is basically a skin tone shade, and I'm just going to put that towards my brow bone, just to kind of tone it down a little bit on the top and soften out the outer edges. And there is my kind of everyday, definitely wearable, easily amped up for nighttime, I'd say warm neutral look using the Anastasia Modern Renaissance palette. So here's finished look with mascara and eyeliner. I feel is very wearable. So final thoughts between the two palettes. The Lorac Pro technically has much more wearable colors, many more options to choose from. Unfortunately, these don't translate from the palette to the eye exactly the way that I would want. So if Lorac would reformulate these so that there's less fallout and actual pigmentation, this would have been my best bet with 8 mattes and 8 shimmers to choose from. But since that is not the case, I'm actually going to recommend this palette, even though there are 2 less shadows, and the colors themselves are just a little bit beyond basic. Maybe that is the appeal to me. These shadows are really my first real foray into the Anastasia Beverly Hills shadow collection. They are as good as everyone claims. They are very pigmented. They blend well, they do not crease, they held up for me all day long. So the appeal of this is it is a little beyond the basic. I am not ready to branch out into the editorial kind of makeup looks, but I definitely am ready to maybe expand my repertoire to a little bit beyond the basic tan beige eyeshadows, and these help me do that. I am very pleased that the majority of these shadows are matte, which makes them a little more user-friendly actually than half shimmer, half matte. So if you're looking for something a little bit beyond the usual neutral palette, I really do recommend this Modern Renaissance palette from Anastasia Beverly Hills. As always, thank you so much for subscribing and watching. Let me know if you want to see more videos like this, or if you want to hear if there is a specific product review you want to see. Put that in the comments as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye. All right, we're gonna take a little detour from beauty and talk fashion. Not exactly high fashion. I'm not about high fashion, which is kind of laughable because